Good afternoon. I am Andrea Chisholm with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. Anti-corruption watchdog National Integrity Action NIA is calling for PETROJAM's management to immediately terminate the process of selecting auditors to lead a forensic audit into the massive oil losses. Parliament's Public Accounts Committee was told yesterday that PETROJAM was drafting the terms of reference for the audit. PETROJAM is unable to account for over 600,000 barrels of oil worth more than $5 billion. NIA's Executive Director, Professor Trevor Monroe, says PETROJAM should have nothing to do with the audit.
I'm appalled at the thinking that could have gone into the brazen suggestion that PETROJAM, the entity being investigated, should have anything to do with the terms of reference or the tender for the forensic auditor. This matter should be put into the hands of the Auditor General for her to determine the terms of reference, tender for the forensic auditor, and of course thereafter have nothing to do with it herself. He is the Minister of Energy. It falls under his portfolio. If PETROJAM doesn't terminate the process, he should instruct that it be terminated in the interest of good governance so that this scandalous conduct at PETROJAM be brought to an end once and for all.
Meanwhile, the PAC is stepping up the pressure for PETROJAM to provide details of the separation packages for the former General Manager and Human Resources Manager. Floyd Grinley and Yolande Ramharak are among the senior managers who left the oil refinery since the PETROJAM scandal erupted last year. Parliament's Public Accounts Committee PAC wants to know the details of the separation packages. But Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Sansia Bennett-Templer, says at least one of the queries is scheduled to be answered by the Prime Minister in Parliament.
With respect to that particular question, I would ask that that matter would be deferred for the portfolio minister's response, because that question has already that question has already been tabled.
With respect, there is nothing in the standing orders that prohibits that from being dealt with. I had many questions outstanding on PETROJAM that were addressed during the PAAC sittings on the same issue. So there is no prohibition. Do not use that to run away from addressing the question. Please respond.
And let me say that I am not, therefore, in a position to answer that question this morning because I didn't come prepared with that particular bit of information.
Yeah, that's obfuscation by the Permanent Secretary.
Or if you don't have information, the General Manager is sitting beside you.
Mr. Watson, you are the General Manager currently, are you?
Currently.
Yes. When the HR Manager her employment was terminated, were you the General Manager then?
I was.
Can you tell us whether she resigned or she was terminated?
She resigned, but there are some discussions I have to confer the PS on that. So we'll provide information afterwards, as she said.
Provided by the next scheduled sitting of the PAC on Tuesday. Portland has recorded its first murder since the start of the year. A woman's throat was slashed in front of her 9-year-old son in Zion Hill Tuesday night. She has been identified as Diana Ruffleton. TVJ News understands that shortly after 7 o'clock, Diana and her son were on the veranda when two men walked up to them, one armed with a gun and another with a knife. A gun was held to the boy's head while the other used a knife to cut his mother's throat. An effort is now being made to address correspondent banking relations between Jamaica and the United States since it has impacted the sale of medicinal ganja products overseas. Members of the ganja sector complain that banks have refused to do business with them because handling funds from the industry will threaten their relationship with correspondent banks abroad. Speaking with TVJ News on Tuesday, Agriculture and Investment Minister Auditor says he'll represent the interest of stakeholders. He noted that with the U.S. legalizing the use of hemp, there may be a way for the banking issues to be worked out.
And that might very well become a point of departure for us, to start there.
In other words, Dr. Lowe's products could very well be within that range where the bill has now been passed in the United States. And if it is within that range, then we have to go right now to apply to regularize the banking relationship. Let's start making medicinal ganja that is low in THC and high in CBD, which has the medicinal value and conforms to the law in the United States, and that will open up our banking arrangement.
Persons living in the corporate area will experience additional water challenges on top of what they are facing at the moment. Some of the challenges are being caused by broken water mains associated with the road works, but the National Water Commission says that's not the only reason. We have details in this report.
We've been going through a pretty difficult period at the National Water Commission, and depending on the particular area in which you are, as a customer, you may have been severely impacted by some of the things.
That's Corporate Public Relations Manager at the National Water Commission, NWC, Charles Buchanan, explaining the problems the Commission has been having with the water supply in the corporate area. Speaking on TVJ's Smile Jamaica program on Tuesday, Mr. Buchanan says the NWC is currently carrying out a major re-engineering project in the corporate area which requires it to turn off supply at certain times. The project, aimed at reducing water losses through leakages and theft, dubbed Non-Revenue Water (NRW), began in 2015 and should last until 2020. Mr. Buchanan is reassuring persons that the NWC is on track with the project, adding that the digging portion should be completed within the next 6 months.
And unfortunately, it requires that we do a lot of digging up, install a lot of new pieces of infrastructure, replacement of sections of pipelines. Essentially, we are redesigning the water supply network, which is about some 1,600 kilometers of pipes in the corporate area. Most of the disruptive elements were expected to be finished in the next 3 to 6 months. Okay. And then we would have been working to do most of the maintenance and troubleshooting and fine-tuning of the details in the latter part of the program.
He also pointed out that the project is not the only one affecting the water supply. He states that the major roadworks has also contributed to disruption in the water supply.
We lost access to about 5.5 million gallons of water that would normally be dedicated to serve customers in Duane Park, Patrick City, along the Washington Boulevard corridor, down into the Mullines Road areas, and Waltham Gardens, those areas, Olympic Way. Because we do not have that pipeline in place since December 8th, we have had to be transferring water from other water supply systems.
He says that the ferry pipeline should be replaced by March. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
The deadline to complete the Mandela Highway Improvement Project has again been pushed back. Manager for Communications at the National Works Agency NIA, Stephen Shaw, says they are still working to open 6 lanes to the public by March. However, the entire highway will not be completed by that time.
What we're seeking to do is to push through the greater portion of the activities by the end of March. Okay. And of course, that's subject to a number of variables. The projects will not be finished in March. I can say that right off the bat. And what I'm speaking about here are works going on along Constant Spring Road, along Hagley Park Road, and the Mandela Highway that Charles mentioned. The Mandela Highway, we're looking to have the 6 lanes possibly open up to the motoring public by the end of March, certainly, because where we are now, we're seeking to complete the final structure. That's a box culvert that we're building at Duane River. We have already completed half, and we are now pushing to complete the other half so that we can lift the road in that area and do what we now have on the westbound side, which is to In some ways, we have 3 lanes open entering the Caymanas area. We want to have that on the eastbound side, which is the side heading into the city.
For the Hagley Park Road Improvement Project, work is ahead of schedule and should be completed by August. Mr. Shaw adds that the Constant Spring Road Expansion Project is also on schedule and that should be completed in July.
As it relates to the Hagley Park project, the 2 overpasses are taking shape. We have roughly 104 girders. The girders are what connect those huge columns that you see coming out of the earth. And on that, we will place the deck, which will be the driving surface at the end of the process. Constant Spring Road, we're making steady progress. We have actually started putting down asphaltic concrete or Barber Green, if you may. We recently did that bit between Hillman Road and Mary Brown's Corner. And we're slated to put traffic on that bit of road by Wednesday or Thursday of this week.
Mr. Shaw was speaking on TVJ's Smile Jamaica program on Tuesday. Residents of Dalvey in St. Thomas are again calling for their Member of Parliament, Dr. Fenton Ferguson, to address the bad roads in the area. We have details in this report.
A stretch resembling a riverbed is what the people of Dalvey in St. Thomas have been calling a road for several years. But now they're at breaking point. This culvert has been deteriorating each time it rains, and it's become impassable after a heavy downpour.
The column, the volume, can't take the volume of the water. So you find it flow over, so it comes it make a dig out here.
They claim the breakaway has become a matter of life or death, especially to unsuspecting motorists.
Look how the bridge broke down there, so. One man jump over there, one day. Really dead, them have to take him out.
The last time I nearly go over there, so cause it shell almost with me. It is not good. Worse in night, dark night. Anybody can drop over there so and dead or something. It's no good.
We spent 88,000 for my car front end in December, and it's gone again.
I have to sell my car. I own 2 cars, and I have to sell my car too. Because every minute I have to change part.
Member of Parliament for St. Thomas Eastern, Dr. Fenton Ferguson, says the Dalvey Main Road is part of the list of roads in the parish to be rehabilitated.
The estimates were done. The initial estimates came out at about $48 million. After due consideration against the background with other members of Parliament, because what we are told is a national program that is being put together, $35 million will be allocated to do from Hampton Court, where we make that left turn coming in, going into Dalvey, not all the way to Dalvey Square.
Dwayne Anderson, TVJ News.
And time now for a preview of what's coming up in this evening's edition of the Health Report.
The next edition of the Health Report, we look at amputation due to diabetes.
We need to be watching them over the years to ensure that they are maintaining good blood sugar control. Because if that is allowed to stay high continuously, that is going to lead to blockage. And so you're going to find that gradually with the blockage, the limbs can begin to be affected. They start to get pain in the limbs. They can't walk for long. You get something called claudication, meaning you're limping. But if you rest, it will go away and you can start again.
That's the Health Report this evening in Primetime News. And now for today's healthy living tip. Avoid sugar-sweetened juice and soda. Avoid stress. Exercise for at least 30 minutes daily. And check your blood sugar levels regularly.